Toki will be sharing some pretty cool stuff regarding the vaults and some of the analytics and data we've gotten regarding the USDC Depeg and some of that stuff. So I thought that'll be really cool. But first, I just wanted to let everybody know that the community newsletter is going to be formatted a bit differently moving forward, and we're going to be publishing it at the end of the week on Sundays, just so it can kind of really capture everything, and also include the recordings for these AMAs. So that'll be good. And then before I give it to Toki, I just wanted to also update everybody on the Arbitrum Airdrop status. I know it's been kind of a while since we announced that we're getting some, and no DAOs have got any yet. Still, I got a chance to speak with some of the Arbitrum folks, and as you can imagine, some of their proposal kind of politics got in the way, and it really hasn't been on their to-do list to kind of airdrop it to all the DAOs yet, but hopefully it will be done in the next week or two. So yeah, there's that, and I will hand it off to Toki.
Awesome. You guys should be able to see my screen. Cool. So I'm just going to start off with giving just a bit of an overview on kind of like why we're seeing like a bit of delay with the vaults, and like what we're doing on our side right now. So right now, like one of the main reasons for the delay is well, obviously like the lawsuit and stuff like delayed us a little bit, but another like reason that we're delayed is like in that time between like our last audit and where we are now, we've added like a significant amount of code to the repository. That code is just like it consists of some like really important components for like hedging. So we added like an Aave hedge manager, so that will like allow us to like access like all of the liquidity on Aave and open up hedge positions like the way that we want to, and like up to, I believe it's like close to 5x leverage on Aave. And that was quite a big task to implement, and also like definitely needs to be audited because of like just the logic we're using in there. Like we're using flash loans just to lever up in one transaction and kind of like basically like take out a loan. We take out like a much larger loan than the collateral we put up using flash loans. So that is like very important to get audited. So that's like part of why we're delayed, is like that needs to be audited. Obviously, like other parts that we've changed since would be like some settlement stuff as well, like for like when we're rebalancing GLP, like just making sure that that's 100% accurate, and we've made like a lot of changes there as well. And then also like we've changed multiple times how we're planning on taking fees in these vaults, and that stuff hasn't been audited either. We need to do that. So there's like there's a broad portion of the vault that just like essentially it just hasn't been audited yet. And yeah, like we'll be going to audit like in the next couple of days with Zokyo. So yeah, like that's kind of just a little brief overview on like parts of the vault that are yet to be completed or yet to be audited, and yeah, like why we're a little bit delayed there. But yeah, I'll move on from that, and let's have a look at some of the analytics that we've been collecting from like the previous deploy. Now, like this deploy, it didn't have like a significant amount of capital in it. Like I think like our total across like all the vaults was like 4K or 5K or something. It wasn't very much, but the idea of this was just to like basically track like, basically set up all of our infrastructure, track how the vaults will perform, like if the rebalances are working correctly, like setting up our keeper, making sure it's working well, making sure that they're kind of like ironing out any bugs. Because when you're building a product like this, like, like before we like actually get to test it fully with like a large amount of capital, kind of had to run it with like just a small amount of capital just to like test and make sure that yeah, everything's working correctly. But I'll go on to start talking about the USDC Depeg stuff. So this happened, let me have a look when this happened. This was like, yeah, so around March 11th. Yeah, obviously like we saw the bottom there. I was like pretty crazy to watch. But yeah, so this image in the bottom right corner of my screen is like the TVL in the USDC vault. So like I said, like we only had about 1,500 in this vault in particular. But you can see like what actually happened in the lead up to the Depeg. So we lost it's about like, I think it was about like 4% of the USDC vault. We took like a 4% hit, like pretty rapidly as well.
Yeah, Toki, sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think your screen switched over to the analytical stuff. We're still looking at the CoinGo chart.
All right, can you see that now?
Yep, perfect.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, back to what I was saying. Yeah. So just the bottom right chart here, you can see that we had about 1,500 USDC in there, and then that dropped down to like around 1,420 USDC. But yeah, so like that ended up being like around a 4% drop. But in theory, like you would expect a USDC vault like not to depeg from, like, so the USDC vault is denominated in USDC. You would expect like the USDC vault not to kind of take a loss against USDC. But like the reason we see that in our vaults in particular is because like when we deposit in our vaults, like when we don't have like a perfect exact weighting to what GLP has, like basically like our weightings when they're slightly different, we're taking on leverage in our strategy. And like some vaults end up taking on more leverage than others. Like if for example, like 50% of GLP is like stable coins, but in our vaults, like our percent weighting is like 70% because everyone wants to deposit in the USDC vault, not the others. And that means we've got like a 20% over leverage onto USDC, which is what we saw here in our allocations. Like we had basically had like a small amount of leverage on USDC, which meant that we saw like we essentially saw a loss when USDC went down because we were exposed to more stable coins than actually deposited in this vault. Which means that we saw like a downswing, like things we can do to like kind of prevent this from happening. One of them would be like taking out like some sort of a hedge on stablecoins, but that can be like quite expensive. One of them is like Y2K. Like we've talked about that internally, but they don't have enough liquidity to be able to support like a significant Depeg. Another option we've talked about internally is like basically like being able to like sell that exposure. So we have like, like added USDC exposure, like we can sell that to someone if they, I don't know, think that it'll go up, or we can give them someone a directional bet. But basically what happens is we have like leverage on USDC. So in theory, if this were to happen when people were deposited and you withdrew when it was like at the bottom, because if you just withdrew and you wanted to sell USDC at the bottom of this spike, then you would be taking like quite a significant loss. But as you can see, like after as USDC recovered, so did the vault. So I guess like the idea is in Depeg events, it's not really, it's like negative EV to like withdraw and sell with this vault, so long as it goes back to peg, obviously. But so that's kind of like just like brief overview on what happened and what we were watching internally. Let me go and we'll talk about this chart here. So this bottom left chart is basically like the price of Ethereum against like the unrealized P&L. I can make this full screen actually, might be easier. So with this chart, basically what it shows is that like it shows the unrealized P&L for GMX traders and how that kind of trends with the price. You can see that like obviously like a lot of longs closed out at this point here because the price was going down. So we saw like a significant reduction in unrealized P&L and that kind of thing. But what's really interesting is like when we track it against like the TVL, so this is like the ETH vault, when we track it against the TVL, we can see that it maps pretty much in line with like the underlying like unrealized trader P&L. So this is like our vault TVL. you can see that like our vault is basically trending up as basically the unrealized P&L as people are closing and losing. Basically, like we're earning basically some revenue from traders losing, which is like nice to see. So this is just like some of the things that we're like tracking internally with regards to the vaults. I can also pull up. I've got like this other analytics part here. So this is just one of the pages that we're using internally. Like this part, this here just shows like how much trader P&L is moving between each of the vaults. So like we have internal positions open, but they make up like most of our positions. And these charts here kind of track like how much like essentially like money is moving between the vaults when we settle those positions. And this was during the USDC Depeg. So what you can see here is that like most of the vaults were, well, these two vaults in particular, basically like they gained a lot during the USDC vault, where is it? Yeah, so when was the Depeg? Was 10th. So you can see here that like basically like we took a bit of a loss on all the other vaults, but it was recovered after. As you can see here, like the USDC vault ended up giving it back as the USDC price recovered, which is just another nice trend to look at. Like you can see like how the vaults kind of like how the money moves back between the vaults as the price of assets changes, which is really cool to look at. But so when we actually launch, we'll have a page like similar to this, as well as some of the other charts that I showed before. Those charts will show like unrealized trader P&L, how much we're like losing and winning, how much each vault is like giving to one another from the internal positions. And like the idea behind that is just so everyone can like kind of get a glimpse into like what's happening behind the scenes and how their money's actually working for them. Which I think would be really cool. But like a lot of the other like platforms don't do that. Like they don't show like unrealized trader P&L and stuff. But it'll be nice to see everyone can track that. I guess that's like most for me. Is there any questions from anyone?
Yeah, just so if anyone's listening to this on record, then you probably won't be able to see what I'm going to share. But I think Grumpy is preparing a Twitter thread that will show some of the similar stuff. But more than happy for the people who are on the call to have a little bit of sneaky alpha and to show you the work in progress UI for the vaults. So I'm just going to try and share my screen. Bear with me. Yeah, I'm just going to drop off and reopen this.
All good. Well, while he's going, I'll also flag that Edis's video, like little promotional video for Umami and the upcoming vaults, will be coming out later today, I believe. So that should be a good little thing for everybody as well.
Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so the first thing that's very, very obvious that we should point out, and if you screenshot this, then you're only fudding your own bags. But this is a dead deploy from a long time ago, and the analytics on here are incredibly inaccurate, which is why we have an APR of minus 700%. So please don't worry yourself about that. And you can see obviously the price per share isn't working either. So basically this is the vaults page, and this is probably the only thing I'm going to show you in this quick sneak peek. And if you guys are dark mode lovers, then there's the dark mode for you. So it's going to have a graph which is going to have the PPS showing the kind of historic performance of the graph. It will also show APR over time as well, so you'll be able to see how it's performing. And this toggle won't work with the USDC vault, but there'll be like a graph of the price of the underlying asset and then the price of the deposit token too. So this will give you some kind of analytics, and then we're going to have a capacity meter that shows you how much space. So hopefully that'll be full for the first few weeks, and then I guess at some stage we may take the caps off for some of the vaults. But probably most interesting is this section, which is where you're going to do all of the work. So it's really quite simple, and that's kind of the idea of it. You just want to be able to deposit your assets, and then we've added these two different tabs, boost and deboost, terminology TBC, but basically the boosted vault, as you can see here, is like a vault that's going to have a higher APR than the liquid vault. And so if you select the boosted vault, then there'll also be when you deposit into that vault, there'll be a delay before you can withdraw. I think we've talked about that before, but basically after you've deposited your tokens, they're locked into like a boosted APR. So it takes some of the performance from the liquid vault, but in return, you have like a lockup period. So if you want to then withdraw, you have to go to the deboost section, which will show your boosted balance. Select the amount of USDC that you'd like to withdraw, so say 100 USDC or whatever, then click the deboost button, and then you will kind of go into like a wait period where your USDC will be taken out of that boosted vault, and it will still be earning yield, but it will be earning yield at the reduced rate. So on this case, for sake of argument, it's at 20%. This is also dummy data, by the way, so don't read too much into this. So it'll be earning yield on the reduced rate for the unlock period, which I think is going to be 30 days, but I know that that's still something that we need to do. And the idea of having this unlock period is that the TVL for us is going to oscillate less, because we think that people will want to get that extra APR. We expect that people will deposit for the long term. And so we won't have to be constantly adjusting too much if people are going to be withdrawing large amounts or coming in and out frequently. So yeah, there's going to be a deposit, boost, deboost, and withdraw. In terms of the boost tab, in general, I think most people are going to go through this route where if they want to boost their deposits, they enter the amount they're going to deposit, and they just go straight into the boosted vault. So we've actually implemented a ZAP to do that. But if you wanted to, you could deposit into the liquid vault, and then at a later date, you could say, oh, actually, you know what, I might go into the boosted vault with some or all of my deposits. And so you do so through the boost tab. So it's really quite simple. It's just jumping between the two. And then at the top here, we have a card which comes up. So if you're not connected, or if you don't have any balance, then that won't show. But when you connect your wallet, you'll see your current balance and your earnings. So the earnings will be calculated by the amount of the asset that you deposited. So if you deposited 1 ETH and your balance is 1.2, then your earnings will be calculated on the site for you. And there's a little thing that shows the calculations as well. And even with this dead API, you can see that I have some positive earnings, so I'm definitely not on a minus 700% APR. And also then we've got this breakdown to show the details. So in general, most people will just want to see this, but if you have split your deposits across the liquid vault and the boosted vault, then you'll see that you're basically where they are. And this is all shown in the underlying asset. So in this case, it's the USDC vault. But if you're in the ETH vault, then this will be shown in ETH. And I think I'll probably add a symbol here as well, just to make sure that's very clear. The deboosting tokens, if you are deboosting, then there's sometimes a queue. So like you might say, right, you might have 1,000 USDC deposited, for example, decide to deboost 500 on day one, and then later on decide you need a little bit more out of the vault than that. So you deboost another 250. You will then have 2 simultaneous deboosting sets of tokens. And if you do, there'll be a little tooltip here that tells you how much is becoming available when it becomes available. I might be able to, this is probably not going to work. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not going to work, but I will try doing a live deposit demo. I think I'm just in the middle of changing. Yeah, in fact, I know this isn't going to work because the PPS is broken, but you can see the flow there. So I approve some tokens, and then you can preview the tokens. Oh, okay, it might. And then click boost. You can't see my wallet popping up, but I'm just signing the transaction there. Some dummy text, but now you can see, should be able to see. Yes, I've got some boosted balance here as well. And again, that's showing. So I deposited. This isn't quite clear, but I deposited some USDC there, and it's showing in the receipt token balance, which is why the balance is slightly different. But you kind of get the idea. And hopefully that's a nice little teaser of what's to come, and it should be quite a smooth process to use, and nothing too groundbreaking. There is a section up here that I'm not going to click on, so there's a portfolio page, and I guess I will quickly pop to the vaults page as well, which is, so you can toggle between vaults here. Ignore the Umami one that's going to show, but you can toggle between our different vaults here, or you can head to our vaults page, which is going to show an overview of all of the different vaults. This is not complete, as you can see by the fix me, etc. But it just shows a nice overview of what our vaults are, what the APRs are, and also how much and what proportions the TVL is split across the vaults. So I think that's everything I wanted to show today. I nearly clicked the portfolio page there. But if anyone has any questions about that, or if anyone wants to has any suggestions or thinks there's anything that they'd like to add, then please feel free. Otherwise, thanks for listening.
Yep, that was really good. If anybody has any questions or anything like that and wants to raise their hand, feel free to do so. It looks like we got a couple in the AMA questions chat. Stratomarius asks, what are the next milestones to pass before the vault launch? Probably the next immediate one, correct me if I'm wrong, Toki, is the code freeze and then sending the absolute final last bit of code to Zokyo, and then starting the audit and then having them finish that up. And then we go into a live deployment testing with a little bit more TVL with the final vault code. Does that sound about right, Toki?
Yeah, that's correct. But yeah, so we'll go into essentially we'll go into a code freeze. At that point, we'll also be launching it internally, and then hopefully planning to test it with a significant amount of TVL before it's being made available to the public.
Cool. And the last one here, it looks like D-Lev is asking if there's any potential future connection between Umami and Dolomite. Wen is kind of spearheading that front. So it'd be a question to ask him next time you see him, but I sure hope so. I think Dolomite's a really great project. And those guys are really smart.
In short, yes, there will be.
And I just want to add to that as well. If you our vaults, especially the liquid vault, is 4626 compliant vault, which means that it should be fairly easy for existing protocols to accept our vault as collateral. And in my opinion, our GLP vaults, the receipt tokens for those GLP vaults make really, really excellent collateral, because they're something that you would, they're obviously interest bearing, and so there will be a lot of demand for people to borrow against them. And so I think that, of course, Dolomite is an absolutely awesome option for us. I think it probably won't be the only lending money market that wants to use our vaults as collateral either.
Copates is asking, Toki, you might want to take a stab at some of these. He's asking, some of this has been kind of discussed, but he's asking what's been discussed in regards to the fees for the vaults, withdrawal wait periods, I guess, for boosted. Boosted and liquid would be instant, and then boosted would be 30 days is what we're thinking. And then he asked for the benefits and cons of those options.
Okay, so it's still to be decided on a final figure for the waiting, the deboosting period. The whole idea for that vault is just so if we saw some really big liquidity event where in either direction, and that people wanted to withdraw, and it would basically the whole idea behind that is just to have a slow release on that withdrawal, so we don't get a really harsh drop off in our allocations in the vault. It's still deciding internally how long that should be. But yeah, 30 days was being discussed as a potential option for that. One of the kind of it's kind of a downfall of it, but what happens is when Both the boosted tokens and the liquid tokens are both ERC 4626 compliant, so they can be used as collateral. They can be used pretty much anywhere in DeFi. But when you're deboosting, you basically have to like commit your receipt token to the contract, so you no longer have access to it, which also means you won't be able to use it as collateral for that period that you're deboosting. So I guess that's kind of like a trade-off for when you want to deboost. That's why we're still discussing like how long that deboost period should be. But whilst it's deboosting, you won't be able to use it as collateral. Another one to touch on the fees. So with the fees for the vaults right now, what we're considering doing is rather than taking a performance fee on the vaults, it'll be like a unique combination of a watermark price, which means that it's kind of like a price checkpoint that we save, and a flat fee. So what that means is we'll have some period, most likely going to be a month, where at the start of the month we'll set a fee watermark. That fee watermark, every time that the vaults are trading above that fee watermark, we'll be taking just a flat fee. That flat fee most likely will be in the range of like 3 to 4%, which in our back testing is equal to the performance fee we were going to take. But it will only be taken if the price of the vaults is trading above that watermark. But we will have just an AUM fee that is taken regardless of the price. So that's just like the base fee. And then if the price is trading above some watermark, then we'll take the extra fee as well, which is to be considered like a kind of performance fee. The reason we're doing it like this is because when you have liquid receipt tokens for vaults, it's quite difficult to be able to like make it fair for everyone where everyone's paying the same amount of fees. Like you basically can game it if you don't do it in kind of like a consistent way like this. The other fees that we'll be taking in the vault, like one of them is just a deposit fee. So that deposit fee will map very closely to the fee that it would cost the strategy to be able to deposit mint GLP and then mint the hedges. So that fee will track very closely to that. I believe it's, I don't quite remember, I believe it's around like 0.5% or something. And then there'll also be a withdrawal fee as well. So that covers like the fees.
I think just to clarify on that one, Toki, is it true that the deposit fee is basically, it's, as you mentioned, it's kind of designed to map the cost of depositing and withdrawing because we're burning and minting GLP, but also that isn't really taken as a fee, right? So if there is any excess, i.e. if it is slightly overestimating the cost of depositing or withdrawing, that would go to the other participants of the vault. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we'll be taking slightly over. It'll just be an overestimate, so we don't have to keep changing it. But the idea is that it'll get custodied in a second contract, and then at the time of rebalance, anything over that will just get sent to the other depositors. So contribute to a very small amount of yield, I guess.
And also, I just wanted to note that on the collateral side of things, and this is one of the downsides of the slow release vault, I think that that's much less likely to be something that protocols will use for collateral, for the very reason that good collateral is easy to liquidate. So if you need to liquidate a loan against a slow release vault, then you've obviously got to wait the withdrawal period to be able to do so, unless somebody actually wants to keep those tokens. So I think the actual duration of the unlock is less important as from a collateral point of view than it is that there is actually an unlock duration. So I would assume that when most people integrate the vaults when they're being used for collateral, they'll be using just a liquid one. And to be honest, that benefits people who are not using who are using the slow release vault, because there is a dilutive effect. So if lots and lots of people use the slow release vault, or in fact, the extreme is that if everybody uses the slow release vault, there is no performance advantage over the liquid vault, because the reason that the advantage comes from the liquid vault depositors. So it's actually good that the liquid vault tokens would be the collateral, because it will mean there's more of a reason to deposit into that slow release vault for those who are going to do it.
Yeah, that's correct. I was also thinking that if people wanted to, they could provide liquidity on the 2 Vault tokens as a pair on Uniswap, and it would trade very similar to like our Umami Umami pair, where there would be like some sort of premium to swap out. But that might also, over time, if there was enough liquidity in that, it could mean like a easier integration for some lending markets.
Yeah, that's very true. And also we could, I suppose, the DAO could propose that for one of our vaults, we do have the treasury seeds some liquidity or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. I think we just got one more question. Do we intend to audit every new feature with Zokio? I think once we send this code into them, there won't be any really new features, because that would kind of defeat the purpose of the audit itself. I don't know if Toki can add some more to that.
Yeah, that's correct. Like basically at that time when we hand the code off to Zokyo, like it'll be like a code freeze, so we won't be adding any new features at that point. But like if there is like some things that need to be changed that are very small, then I guess we can change those, but we'll have to update Zokyo in that process. But yeah, we won't be adding any new features.
Alrighty, cool. Thank you guys for all coming out. If nobody has any more questions or anything like that, we can go ahead and end it here.